welcome to the Young Indian Professionals of New England Finance Talk panel, where we have Preeti Tandon, Sanjay Kridimurthy, and Raj Sharma. I'm sure you've all heard of them, and I'm sure you've read their bios before this event, so we don't have to get more into that. But today's event is more catered towards young professionals learning about finance. I feel like today many people don't understand finance, and when we're in college, we are not taught about basic finances. We kind of have to learn it on our own. I can speak from experience. In college, I was never really learned about, how to do taxes or how to budget myself or even how to invest or how to do stock market trading and all. I learned it from my dad actually. So if I didn't have my dad's support, I would have been lost. So I feel like events through like panel discussions and webinars are perfect to learn about finance because in today's culture and even going forward in your life, finance is a major life decision topic and an idea that, is crucial in everyday's life. So we have Preeti Tandon, Sanjay Kritimurthy, and Raj Sharma here to help us out on how to budget, how to properly become financially aware, and how to be financially literate so we can be financially independent and know where our money is going and how to save and how to make more money because who doesn't love to make money? So come and let's talk money. So today we're going to start with knowing the panelists a little bit more. So Raj, do you want to talk about how you got to where you are today and what got you into finance?
Sure. You know, Niharika, I'm an accidental advisor. This was not the career I was planning. And many of the young people here know that over the course of your life, you may have 5 or 6 distinct careers. And I started off as a radio DJ for All India Radio.
Oh, that's
It was
fun.
playing Western music, rock and roll, and then I got a degree in economics because, at that time, being a DJ in a radio station, did not pay your bills. It got you a cup of chai, literally. And so my dad said, son, get an MBA, you'll be never out of a job. So I listened to my dad, and my dad at that time said, banking, son, is a great career. Remember the movie Graduate for some of the older people here, Dustin Hoffman's father says, son, get into plastics. So my father said finance, and I told my dad, Dad, you don't know anything. Media is the world, is the future. But anyway, I did my MBA, worked at a multinational in finance and marketing for a bunch of years, did a lot of work building up startup companies in India, that is. But the media bug never left me, and I wanted to, do something in media, become a storyteller. So I came to Boston to Emerson College, and I did another master's in film and media. And I was a filmmaker for a good 8 to 10 years before I transitioned. And I figured I was too much of the business guy. I was always the executive producer. So I was, I had a great time, no regrets, had a wonderful time in the artistic world, but I figured I'd make a change into something business oriented. So I stumbled into this. It wasn't my initial choice, at least, but it's been a fun choice.
Fun and money making worthy choice. That's awesome. Preeti, do you want to go next to talk about how you got to finance and how you got to where you are today?
Sure, and strangely, also just like Raji, accidentally, I was one of the kids in growing up to Indian parents who wanted to have doctor for a child, and obviously I did not have the grades to make it to a med school. So the next obvious choice was get into business and commerce, and I did that and followed the chartered accountancy route back in India, and eventually went into the typical boring job as an accountant with one of the big fours back then. And soon enough to know that I wasn't made to be sitting on the chair, crunching numbers and doing things behind the scene. I wanted to be out there, and that's that was, I think, the first aha moment for me when I made the switch from accounting to go into investment banking, and had the opportunity to work with two large banks in India, Kotak Mahindra and HDFC Bank. And I think those were some of the most profound and an amazing moment that I had because I got to work with two stalwart companies back then called HLL, Hindustan Liver Limited, and Cadbury. So I got to work with them, and everything was amazing until something called marriage happened that teleported me before I knew it from India to United States, and not knowing where I was, and I had to restart my life. And I guess things happened for good because now when I had to restart my life, I got a chance to reinvent myself and see what I have to do. And that's when I got a chance to re-educate myself and go back and get ready for the American corporate world. And after, acquired a few licenses and actually a lot of licenses and a couple of degrees, and then went back into a private banking world and had the opportunity of working with Wells Fargo Private Bank in California for several years. And then I moved coast to coast to Boston and had an opportunity to work for almost 10 years with TIAA-CREF, which is one of the largest wealth management company and retirement company for not-for-profit space. And then eventually the quest to be able to serve more complexities, which is what brought me to JP Morgan Private Bank. And here I am for the last 2 years, and really enjoying that space, and being able to manage the actual complex financial planning for the ultra high net worth clients. That's my little journey.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
Sanjay, do you want to go next to talk about how you got to where you are today?
Yeah. So I think I have a mix of both Raj and Preeti here. I had a career in chemistry. I had a master's in chemistry back in India, worked as a chemist for many years. And then, as Preeti said, marriage happened, came to US. But it was not an accident. I did go to school for my MBA, but I thought I'll do marketing, but I started getting passionate about accounting and finance. And I gravitated so much towards finance that I dropped marketing credits and took on extra credits for finance and ended up with MBA. I worked for Morgan Stanley for a year, and then I had some issues, H1 issues. So I went back to school, but this time I went into PhD, finished my PhD in finance, and then I decided not to go because I had already tasted the Morgan Stanley world. I went the faculty side, and I have been teaching finance topics, mostly corporate finance, but since last few years, I've been teaching investments and analysis, advanced financial analysis classes. So that's my experience been.
That's awesome. We're also grateful to have you all three part of this call. I think all of you have different diverse backgrounds, but it's going to make the conversation more holistic. So I want to take this conversation into a general part right now to talk about finance generally. So what do you think are the challenges that the financial world faces today? Sanjay, do you want to go first to talk about the challenges?
You mean the financial world?
Just challenges in the finance world or in your career.
It's pretty broad. I would say, like, if I am assuming like all the listeners here are thinking about where, how to start, where to put. So the most important thing is time. The earlier they start, the better. Doesn't matter where they are investing as long as they start off. And when I say early, even if they have any earned income, I would say, like, even if they have some summer jobs and all that, take that money, start putting in an IRA account, as long as you have taken off. These days with apps like Robinhood, where you can even like purchase single shares. So learn investing, because the best way to learn is to try something out. Go ahead and you can read books and books and watch videos and all that, but until and unless your money is not invested in it, you are not going to. I know for a fact that one of my friend, he never knew finance, but he bought one Intel stock, and suddenly he knew so much about Intel, that because every little bit of news used to go through his brain. So that much his brain became attuned to, because his money was there working for him. So the best thing I would say is start rolling the ball as early as you can.
That's great. Yeah, I want to definitely get into more. I know you mentioned Robinhood and I know you mentioned stocks and investment. I definitely do want to get into that later on in this talk because as you all might know, during COVID, there was a meme stock, Dogecoin, that left all the young professionals interested about finance and money. And that's something that I definitely want to get later on in this talk. So I think that's a really great way to segue into that section as well too. Preeti, what do you think are the biggest challenges in the finance world right now?
It's a great question. I think we are swimming in a pool of challenges at this point in time. But if you had to narrow it down to a couple of items, I would absolutely second what Sanjay just mentioned. I think we just, as Indian, people of Indian descent, what we've learned really well is to study really hard and learn how to make money. But I don't think enough emphasis is laid in terms of financial literacy, in terms of budgeting, in terms of saving, but how strategically should that be done? Investing, everybody wants to invest, but what would be the right way? How to make sure that it is invested such that you get to keep what you're creating and not lose half of it in transit. Also, the advantages of starting early. I think that's one of the biggest challenges. Like many other things that we like to push out to later, whether it's vacation, whether it's saying sorry to somebody, or whether it's going on a pilgrimage. I think investing is another thing where people push it out to later, especially the younger individuals. So, this is our time to enjoy, and we can think about this later. Retirement is so many decades away. We don't have to worry about right now. So I think procrastinating is one of the big problems that is stemming in the younger generation. The other thing I think is there's so much of social pressure in terms of being cool, in terms of keeping up with the glamour and being in trend, that overspending is an outcome, and because of which I think over usage of debt or spending more than requirement, consuming more than required is another epidemic that the younger generation is faced against. And amidst all of this, where we're struggling with some of these items, we have these ever-changing rules and regulations and taxation, and of course our government is also sure to be in news all the time with all of the new excitement that it keeps creating, which keeps adding the challenges. And if all of this is not done, we're faced. Back in the days, we used to be worried about bank robbery or people coming and stealing. Now we have cybersecurity. We have thugs. You don't know how, what you enter, where you put in, how it is being used, where is that going to come to bite you? So there's tremendous challenges coming along with a lot of convenience. So I think that, in my mind, is some of the biggest challenges, to name some of the top few ones that come to my mind right now.
That's great. I think these are all different. Like I can speak for myself, definitely overspending is definitely an epidemic that everyone faces. I know my friends and I definitely do face that when we're going out. So I think that's a really good topic that you brought up, and also cybersecurity as well, because in today's culture we have AI now, so that in Chat GPT. So, we gotta stay in touch with that too. So I think those are really important key topics. Raj, what are the biggest challenges in your opinion that young professionals face in finance?
I would say, very much in tune with what Preeti said and Sanjay, it's financial literacy. And financial literacy is more than just investing. It's basic financial hygiene. Uh, how to take care of your credit. Why does your digital footprint matter in this world? Why not to bounce a check? Everything you do is getting recorded someplace. And eventually, when you apply for a job, most companies do a credit check, and that can come to hurt you. So you want to be conscious of your bills, paying them on time. You also want to be conscious of uh, leverage or debt. It's easy to spend money on a credit card. You sort of, it feels, you're not spending money. And that's what the credit card companies want. They want you to accumulate debt, and they want you to pay the minimum possible. But if you look at the rate of interest, it's 18% to 24%. Whereas in the bank, you're getting probably 1%. Maybe in a money market fund, you get higher. So you want to be conscious of your leverage. Many of you may have student loans. Have a game plan for, paying the student loan, depending on the rate of interest. If it's only at 3%, maybe it's okay to have it. Maybe your money can compound at a higher rate. But understanding your debt is important. And ultimately, your net worth is the difference between your assets and your liabilities. That's your net worth, whatever stage you're in your life. And I think building assets for the long term, Preeti touched upon, saving, pre-tax. Anything you save pre-tax, like a 401k, is powerful. It's not counted as income. It compounds tax deferred. And if you can do it in a Roth, and I would say a lot of young people should be looking at Roth, because right now, some of you may be in a lower tax bracket. Although you don't get the deduction, you get to compound the money, and when it comes out tax free. So that's powerful, understanding that. Again, that's for your long term retirement. But some of you may have visions of, say, buying a house, buying a condo, and your post tax money. And you're able to hear me okay?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So your post tax money. So even if you save a couple of $100 a month or whatever you can afford, if stocks are good if you at least have a 5-year horizon. And I would not make the mistake when you're starting off uh, by investing in individual stocks. It is better to have a fund. It could be an index fund or a mutual fund. The reason for that is, let's say you speculate in Tesla. You bought it at 300, and today it had a sharp downturn. It's at 180. That you might lose your interest or your confidence in investing. So investing, there's a science to it, and diversification helps. So over the long term, you're going to get a decent rate of return. If you look at the overall market in the US since 1926, the rate of return has been somewhere in the 9% area. That means every 8 years, you've doubled your money. So the key thing is to stay on that bandwagon so that you could save for a house. But again, you need that time horizon. If you have a very short time horizon, a year or so, you might want to invest in a certificate of deposit or something of that kind. You need to keep that. So I would say financial hygiene and also risk management is another big thing where, you're single right now, and, perhaps some people depend on you. Maybe your parents are dependent on you. Perhaps you should take out some life insurance on yourself. Perhaps you live in a rental apartment, and if somebody parties there and they slip in your rental or your owned apartment, you could be liable. So you might need some liability insurance, which is very cheap at this stage. So risk management, budgeting, looking at that, looking at your overall budget, and sort of understanding your cash flow, I think is very, very important. So you have a long horizon. That's a key thing. You can afford to make mistakes, but like everybody pointed out, starting early is the key, and delayed gratification is another key. So that you can say, I'm going to sacrifice that extra dinner I go to every month. I'm going to put that money away. I'm going to see what happens to that money over the long term. Just stuff like that, basics. That's what I tell my kids. And unfortunately, they don't listen to me. Maybe Preeti should talk to my kids.
Absolutely, anytime. Let me know.
I
We're
was
on.
part of the conversation as well. But yeah, I think what you said about like budgeting and investment and understanding your cash flow and like understanding how to compromise and saving money are definitely the key like topics that I think are like awesome and that I think every young professional should know. And I definitely want to deep dive into that today. So you talked about financial literacy. How can the youngsters or the young professionals get financial literate? Are there resources to understand how to become more financially educated in yourself? Sanjay, do you want to go first?
Yes, as I said, resources are there. I would probably give some simple rules. Like there are some simple rules of rule of thumbs, like the 28-36 rule. If you are buying a house, make sure that your mortgage doesn't go over 28% of your income. Your total debt payment should not be greater than 36% of your income. Uh, if you are investing, the simple rule of thumb, like I think somewhere in the discussion also was there, people like think about constantly doubling the money. So that is the rule of 72. We say, like, you have an investment horizon and then choose the rate of return that you are choosing. So the multiplication of these two should come to approximately 72. That gives, so if you have 10 years and you want to double your money, then look for an investment that gives you around 7.2% annual return. So you are doubling your money. So have these benchmarks. Like another important, like Raj was saying about, even when you're beginning, think about retirement. So the question is, how much do you want in your retirement? So again, the rule of thumb here is that you should have around 20 to 30 times your retiring annual salary. So if you are making 100,000, we are talking about 2 million to $3 million. So once you have these goals set, then you know what path you are going to take. Like sacrifices, right? You don't, it's honestly, when you are say, if you sacrifice it too much, like, you don't want to penny pinch so much that you are putting everything away in the savings and retirement and not really enjoying all the money that you are making. And like if it's too late to enjoy certain things, of course that is not a fun thing, right? So you should have an idea. So one of the most important thing is find out what is your goal, like determine what kind of lifestyle you want to maintain. So what where and given your educational background, given your desire to, like, grow in career and all, what kind of earning potential you have, based on that determine your goals and then set out on the path. I can go on about more about the rule of thumbs that are out there. And of course, another thing quickly I'll mention is insurance. So it's very important to have insurance, but again, how much insurance coverage do you want? Or like, again, the rule of thumb is that at least 10 times your annual income. Now you have to make a determination. Are you going with the term life insurance? Are you going with the whole life insurance? Because your premium amounts are going to be very different. So again, these are some of the things that you want to discuss, especially, and I think I will go a little bit later because there are two money managers here, and but honestly, there are many. I think Raj would agree probably, and Preeti would, that more people are like me who probably use the dartboard technology where, okay, I'll buy Tesla, I'll buy this, I'll buy that, rather than going with a disciplined, have a investment philosophy, have strategic goals, have like a well diversified portfolio with mutual funds and closed-end funds and ETFs, and then probably go and invest in some individual stocks. So that is what the advantage of going to a money manager is, where they do a top-down approach, as against individuals who normally do this bottom up. They just randomly buy stocks and hope that the results are matching what the money manager would exactly give. So again, so if you have a nice game plan, if you know what is diversification, understand where all you want to put your money, and most importantly what the goals are, then probably you are on the correct path. And there are many
Sanjay,
tools. Yeah.
you're spot on. You're spot on. I would say, once you build your foundation, whatever your goal is, let's say it's $100,000 of diversified assets, then you can take 10% and buy some individual stocks.
Yeah.
But you don't want to reverse that, because what happens is we've seen so many individuals lose money in crypto, the meme stocks, and
Good point.
chasing whatever is hot. And that's not what the market is. And why did the US stock market do 9% a year? Because our economy was growing. We were producing profits. We were becoming prosperous. And you want to participate in that prosperity. So Sanjay, you're spot on, in terms of looking at how do you build. Think of it as like a pyramid. You want the base to be solid, then you can speculate a little bit, maybe 10% or 20%. You could say, I like XYZ stock. I'm going to buy 4 or 5 of them, not just one stock. And then as opposed to, the other way around. And I feel a lot of young people tend to be, seduced by what's happening in the popular press. If you hear some of the shows, they're always talking about stocks like it's entertainment. Stocks are actually boring. Making money is boring. It just takes time and compounding. And but they try to sell, ads. So they try to make every hour count. So I think you need to push those distractions away and just focus on your career.
So I know you brought up a really interesting concept about beam stock and investing in stocks. I know during COVID, AMC stock, like the movie theater and GameStop and Dogecoin all had like their all crazy stuff that made everyone like feel like they're investors and make crazy money each day. What do young professionals how should they look at how to make a stock, and how can they make an educated purchase on what stocks are good for them?
You want me to take a stab at this?
Sure.
All right. So I will answer your question with a couple other. I'll take the panel back to the drawing board. I think if you ask me what are some of the key things that the young professionals need to keep in mind and insight as they're thinking about finance, I think it comes down to three basic things, in my opinion, in my learnings. The first and the most important thing is budgeting. I think it's not about how much you make, but it's how much you get to keep. You could be making $1 million, but if you're spending 800,000, then you're probably not going to be that well off as compared to someone who's making 100,000 and saving 50% or 40% of it. So I think budgeting is so important. And when I talk about budgeting, of course, there has to be some part of it that you need to be saving. And when you're saving, it comes in all different ways and shapes and form. But two most important things, obviously, is one is for saving for your short and your midterm requirements, and then some is for your long term, which is your retirement savings. And of course, then when we start about saving, we talk about investments, and that takes us back to the drawing board in terms of I want to make the most money I can, and usually that is the best recipe to lose money. I remember back in the days when I started this profession, my mom asked me, "What are you going to be doing?" And I said, "I will be helping people make investment decisions." And her immediate response was, "To tum satta bazaar mein ja rahi ho." And I don't think she was wrong, because I feel if you're investing, but investing without appropriate knowledge, investing because you're following the herd mentality, because that is the buzz in town. That's what everyone's doing. That's what everyone's talking about. And that's why I'm going to be investing without having the knowledge of it. Usually when the buzz happens or when something gets really popular, it's because it's already peaked out. It's already attained the possibilities that it had. And that might usually be the wrong timing that you're getting in. So if you are looking at investing and if you're doing it without appropriate knowledge, that is equal to gambling. So I would say steer away if you don't understand the investments enough to make a knowledgeable entry into that investment. While you're making the investment, I would certainly request all the people on this panel and pass it on to your families is please pay yourself first before you pay others. And especially coming from Indian families, I think our key focus is how do I make sure I pay? How do I take care of the people in my family that need it? How do I save for my children? I think that is all important, but they're as important as they're probably secondary important. The most important is you. Just like when you are in the airplane, the first mask that you should be wearing, the oxygen mask, is for yourself before you put it on to your kids. You have to pay yourself first before you start saving for the others. So I think that is so critically important. And when it comes to savings, you have to be conscious. Like Raji mentioned about saving for your retirement, you have to, all of our young individuals, especially when we're starting off new, we have so many conflicting priorities. We're building a new family, we're buying a home, maybe we have young kids, some are paying student loan, so many conflicting priorities. It is very important to have that big take home. What you get net at home is more important than what you can save. And sometimes people don't even put money into their 401k savings. And, that is, I will do it someday when I get a little bit more comfortable with my cash flow. And guess what? That day never comes. So one of my advice to the young professionals is, please, 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 as soon as you get into workforce, get into the habit of saving for your retirement. Typically, there is a maximum annual contribution limit that you can put onto 401k, and it's limited because it is so good. If somebody who knows about it would want to put most of it in there, so that's why government limits it to an amount, because you have so many years, so many decades of compounded growth, and you don't want to leave it on the table. And most importantly, those are the only savings that you have that you don't have to pay taxes on right now. And plus, there is some amount of monies that your employer is adding, typically in the range of 1 to 7%, depending on how generous they are. Most of the employers are matching to the savings that you're making for your retirement account. And if you are not saving into your 401k, you're immediately going to forfeit or give up on that opportunity. So please don't leave money on the table, and make sure that you're saving for your retirement. If you can, if you are a conscientious savers, I would certainly recommend put money into your IRA account. Whether or not it's deductible eventually, that's a different story, but put it away, take advantage of deferred growth. And last but not the least is learn to manage your debt appropriately. I think that is so important. Sometimes people either love debt or they hate debt. If they love debt, they will just go on adding and adding, I'll pay it someday. And that's never a good thing. And likewise, some people are so averse to debt that they would have nothing on. I know that there are some people that would take money out of their investment account, which is doing 8 to 10%, to pay off their mortgage, which is at 3%, just because it makes them sleep better at night. And I always tell them that that might make you sleep better at night, but it might not be the most prudent use of your money. So be conscious of your debt. And again, there are good quality debts and bad quality debts. In my opinion, mortgage is the best quality debt if you have it, because not only is it tax advantaged, it also helps you build your credit, and of course it affords you to get a home. The worst quality debt would be your credit card debt. Like Raji was saying, it could be anywhere from 5 to 6% to up to even 30% that you could be paying. So those, I would certainly want you to, I would never recommend that you put your money into an investment account to make 5 to 8% or 10% and be paying 20, 25% on a credit card debt. So please be wise with your debt, manage it appropriately, build a better credit score, and open a world of opportunities for yourself.
I think those are some wise words. I know you said about credit scores, and I know how credit score is very important in today's world because that's how you're going to get a good credit card. I want to definitely go deep as a deeper dive into that topic as well, because I know your credit score affects many areas in your financial life. Among other major decisions, your ability to buy a house, lease a car, and apply for a credit card are all impacted significantly on how good your credit card score is. How can young professionals build their credit, and how can they increase their credit score? Raj, you want to go first on this question?
Sure. So, first of all, I think you need to pay your bills on time. You don't want any delinquencies because that'll immediately show up and that'll ding your score. Second, if you have borrowed money, that's actually a good thing to build credit. So let's say you borrowed money for a student loan and you're paying it off on time. That builds your credit. So if you borrowed money, say to buy a car, and you pay it on time, that again, so what they're looking for are people who are consistently conscious of their credit and pay down their credit. And that's how your scores start to go up. So I would say, it's sort of basic common sense to a large extent. And today you can subscribe to these credit services and check your credit score once in a while. Most financial institutions also allow you to do that. So you just sort of keep track of it. And if your credit score is very low, you need to look at your credit report and see why it's low. Maybe it's got some wrong information on you. Maybe they picked up somebody with a similar name. So it's not perfect at all. You need to be conscious of what their reporting, and you can often correct it. It does take some time, but the key thing is to be, conscious of this digital footprint we'll carry the rest of our lives.
That's great. Thank you. Sanjay, do you want to go next on how to build a credit score for young professionals?
I think Raj covered most of them. Like you have to have debt and then pay them on time. Don't max your credit card. Basically, have a good financial discipline. If you don't mind, I will go back to something that you asked, but I think none of us really addressed that. So, because you were asking something about AMC and Dogecoin and all that.
Yeah.
So like when you asked that, something went in my mind, so I just thought I'll bring that out. So again, against the probably the protest of Preeti and Raj, I'm still going that single stock route. If because as I said again, there are more people like me out there who are probably doing this dartboard thing. So one advice, if people are really going that route, I would say is that uh, think about what products you use. Like if you are one who is constantly buying at Costco, look around in Costco. Look at how many similar people like you are there. Are you going to keep spending money at Costco again and again and again? Are you buying some kind of like Spotify, or are you Netflix? Are you like subscribing to those? And are there many people like you who are going to use this service, and there is a not one time expense, but you're constantly giving them money again and again. So when you are so rather than just going by whatever comes in the news today and just buying that, think where you are spending the money and how many people like you might be there. If you are a very unique person where what you do is nobody else is doing, then certainly that is not the company you want to invest in. But if you think you are more average person, and there are many of you like Activision Blizzard, or now it's absorbed by Microsoft, but if there are many teenagers playing video games, then go, okay, then this is something I might be looking into. So rather than time spending waste, like spending video games playing, you just see around, okay, everybody's playing video games. Which is the company that is really making these games, what they're. So the best way to, if you're like really looking for your own stock portfolio, start thinking where like you're willing to spend money on it, like for the product, so that they are generating the revenue, they are taking the profit. And then see if those stock trades, and if it is trading, of course, do some research, look at their beta values, look at their P ratios, all those things, and then invest in those stocks. So AMC and all that, again, it's a big discussion and a separate line. But rather than following the news, as Raj said, it can be boring, but where are you spending the money? So that would be a better way to create your own portfolio rather than following just the news.
That's awesome. Also, one thing I want to bring up, I know that many young professionals, including me, we I know my friends, they're all who live in Boston, they deal with more expensive rents and they have to deal about paying their rent, buying groceries, and also having a social life. I know we all three we all of you three have brought up the idea of budgeting that I want to bring up, and I know that it'll help many other young professionals that are also in this call. I know budgeting is the key in today's world, and many young adults have to worry about buying groceries, paying their expensive rents, and rents in Boston are expensive. That's why I chose to live at home, because I would definitely want to save money for the long run.
Are you paying rent to your mom?
Yeah, I'm giving her hugs and giving her, home food.
You
No,
got a pretty good deal.
yeah, and I do have very supportive parents who, help me and support me through everything. So I'm really grateful to have a really good family life. And they're both are in this call today. So I'm very happy to have their support. But anyways, I know many young adults don't have that luxury, and they have to leave some room to save and invest their money. Are there any techniques that young professionals can use? And also, with the increase of technology, I know there's a lot of apps on your phone that can help you budget yourself. Is there any technology advancement apps that you could suggest, or any techniques that young professionals on this call can take so that they can budget more successfully and save more money in the long run?
I think there's a ton of resources there. Like if you bank with any major institution, go to their website, they'll have financial literacy resources, banks, mutual fund companies, and they have free budgeting software. So any of those are good. They're also credit agencies which are around the country, and they're required to provide financial literacy. These are credit counseling agencies. So you just have to Google them and find. So they'll have effectively courses on financial literacy, which are again free. So you do have a lot of resources, and one of the resources which is sort of underutilized is the Khan Academy. Very good, very sensible. You go there and ask what's a PE ratio, and you know, a quick explanation and a very easy one. Now Sanjay can do a far better job, but he's expensive. He's a professor, so but for all kinds of concepts where you may not be aware of, it's a great guide. So there's certainly more available than any time I know. Maybe 25 years ago, you didn't have the internet. You just had to go to books in the library. I mean, the resources available are incredible.
And
But
can I
then,
just
of course, once you get have a company account at a firm, any firm, ask them about educational resources. What can they share? Do they have budgeting software? And oftentimes they would help you out.
and can I give a little shout out to your book? That's also a really good resource. So Raj Sharma has written a really great, amazing Amazon bestseller book called The Purposeful Wealth Advisor. And it's an amazing book, amazing read. Would you like to tell about your vision towards that book, and what is the key takeaway from writing the book?
The key takeaways from the book is it's basically written for you know advisors who want to succeed in the business. And as Preeti would know, there's a like a 80% mortality rate. So when people join the business, 80% of the people leave within 2 or 3 years. And it's a difficult business because you have to find your own clients, you get training and all that. And so, my goal is to help them. But my overriding goal is to attract more women into the wealth management business. Uh, the percentage of women in the business is less than 15%. If you think about a typical lawyer's office, it's probably 40 to 50%. And also more people of color, more minorities into the profession, because unless you learn wealth management, how are you going to teach other people to manage their wealth, your communities? So I think it's a very empowering career, and my goal is that more people, especially more people listening here, might want to consider a career. And there's a shortage of wealth advisors, believe it or not. A lot of advisors over the next 10 years will retire. And because of the nature of the profession, the fact you got to get clients yourself, many people are reluctant to go into it. But I think it's an incredibly rewarding career for the right person.
I know you brought up women in finance. I know Preeti is also involved you know, um, in the Women's Investment Club. What was your experience on that club, and how do you think women are empowering themselves with becoming financially independent?
It's such a great question, and I think so imperative in this day and age. I think especially for the Indian families, I've seen. I think we've always grown as a sidekick, to our growing up as daughters and sisters, and eventually mothers and wives, of course. Um, but I think just being the sidekick, or being the support system, we have in some way, shape, or form developed a lack of confidence, and not being involved or not being actively pursued for these engagements has brought in lack of knowledge. And in many ways, when women, especially if they're not involved themselves, or they are homemakers, they many times they don't even feel the ownership to be involved, because they don't make it, so they're not worried about preserving it or growing it. And I think all of these are huge problems that we have. and, and I feel so because I think women are innately born to have better judgment, They have a cause effect thing internally. Like the moment you are a mother, I need to start saving for my child. I need to make sure that I have some rainy day savings. You're spending too much. What if we don't have this? I think this is some of the few characteristics women have innately, and I think if that is combined with your investment and an investor's focus, if you have this cause effect and cautiousness and risk aversion and having a more intuitive feeling, if these two are put together, it automatically will give you a better outcome. And likewise, I think I think women need to be involved in this, because what comes out of their money is finally what will define what their future will be like. So I think it is both their responsibility and their right to be involved in this. And as far as men are concerned, if you haven't yet, you should start getting the women in your families involved, because you want to make sure that you use that wisdom that you have right in your household. And of course, you don't have to take the blame of everything that goes wrong too that way. But other than that, yes, in my community, I'm a big propagator of women empowerment and women to be independent. And I think all of these things that work against our favors as being the minority gender in this profession, or people who are not knowledgeable enough, also happens to, on the same scale, become our biggest strength. Because we're a minority, because we are women, we automatically have an advantage, like Raji was mentioning. Just being some of the few, every time people ask me what are the challenges, I say, because I'm a woman. And then people are telling me, what are your advantage? And I say, it's because I'm a woman. So they both fall on the same platform at the same time. So I definitely encourage that. I do have a team in and around my town. We initially thought we'll bring some of our monies, women stash some money away, sometimes put it in the rice box and the rice jar, and they want to invest. And we thought first we'll make it like a fund and invest, but then there were a lot of tax issues and accounting issues, so we did not do that. So now what we do is we just have monthly meetings where we share market outlook, good investment ideas, give them some best practices to follow, and then we follow it up on that. So I'm one of the co-chairs of that, and I help women with a passion on that cause. But before I actually pass on to that, I do want to take a moment to go back to your previous question in terms of building credit score. And the reason why I'm so passionate about that is because I think that's one of the areas where the younger generation struggle most, and also there's a lot of confusion around it. And I've spent a lot of years to learn about this and study about this. And I also got an opportunity to teach about this in UCI. So I would love to share a couple of best practices, and I think that can help. So I think it's such a delusional factor when we talk about credit score, but I think some of the key things to remember is in the credit world, credit cards are great, but they're not great. You need to have credit, but you should not have too much credit. So it's a lot of it's information overload. But I think a couple quick cues to remember is there is something called a debt utilization ratio that these credit companies go by. They have three large credit bureaus, your TransUnion, Experian, and what was the third?
Equifax.
Equifax, thank you. So these three credit bureaus are the ones that are tracking it. What they're really looking for is, what is your debt utilization ratio, which means what is the debt that has been afforded to you. So for example, what is your credit card limit in simple language, and how much have you used out of it? If your credit limit is $10,000, and if you have a $2,000 balance, your debt utilization ratio is 20%. So as long as you're under the 30%, you are below the radar. But the moment you cross 30 or higher, you start to have all kinds of red flags, and it starts to take away what they call your credit scores down. That being said, when they look at your debt utilization ratio, they're not looking at just one credit card, because we are in a day and age where we have 10 wallet pockets for our credit card, and we fill all of them, and we have a couple of them inside where we keep the bills as well. So when we have 10 credit cards, thankfully, what they look at is what your total credit limit is. So say if all the credit cards put together, if your credit limit is $200,000, and if you have used only 2,000 outstanding, now you're looking at only about 1% of your, of your overall credit balances, of your credit utilization ratio. So be judicious about that. But individually, you also need to look at not going over the 30% credit limit on each credit card. Everyone is very scared of credit cards, and especially when you apply. So yes, you should be very prudent on which ones you need. But if there is a good credit card and you have a compelling and a good reason to have it, have it. Because believe it or not, against the popular belief that credit card is bad for your financial health and your credit health, it actually improves your credit health in a way, because what it tells the credit bureau is you are trustworthy. You can be given this credit limit because you've earned it. And if you continue to maintain lower balances, it actually shows positively on you. So don't be too shy away. Don't shy away too much from it. But at the same time, don't be over generous and love it too much so that your wallet explodes. So that's definitely one of the things. The other thing for some of those people who are newly starting, if you have younger siblings or children in the family, make sure you start them off with a student credit card, which typically starts at age 18, which is their own individual credit card. It starts with a very small balance, $800 to $1,000 or something, but it's a great way to kickstart your credit. And I think everyone should have it, but after getting this little lecture on how to manage their credit card. So it's very important. Secondly, what I would say is if you have a new spouse, especially in Indian families and immigrant families, if you have a spouse that has just joined you and now she's 25 years of age and just in this country with zero credit, I think a quick and an easy recipe to get them started with the credit is just add them as a joint account holder, or what do they call that, authorized user on your credit card. The moment you do that, they inherit the entire, and especially only do it if they have a good credit, please. Don't do it if they have a bad credit. So whatever good credit they have, you immediately inherit it the moment you become the authorized signer to that account. So make sure you use some of these techniques to improve your credit score. And of course, if you have 12 credit cards and if you are in this rampage, I want to clean up, spring cleaning mode, I want to get rid of couple of these credit cards that I don't need, please don't pick the oldest ones. The ones that have been the oldest and the longest standing ones are the ones that are contributing most to your credit score and the length of your credit history. So pick out the youngest ones to go out first. Last in, first out, LIFO in the accounting.
Yeah, I do remember that from my accounting class.
That's right. So just keep that in mind, and like Raji said, be vigilant. Be vigilant. If you can sign up for these, there's free. If you go on, your bank accounts offer this. If you have a bank account app, just sign on for this free credit scores. They track and monitor your credit on the go. If there's ever any inquiry, you'll immediately get a notification. And it's a good way for you to look into, is this really what I did? If not, you can go and dispute it. And you always have a 90 days window to dispute it. If it's not yours, it'll be kicked out of your credit report. So I think if you follow some of these rules, you should be fine.
That's awesome. So I know I want to definitely open the floor up to questions and answers, but before I do that, I know you three are very highly successful in what you do. You guys are my role models, and I definitely look up to each one of you in this panel. So I want to end the panel with this one question. What do you think are the key attributes that determine success in any career? Raj, you want to go first?
Sure. The normal assumption is that IQ is the most important factor, right? Get the best scores. and be intelligent. And I'm not saying that's not important. It's a prerequisite that need to go to a good school, learn stuff, get all the basics. And perhaps this country is a little bit different, but from my experience, the ability to work with people, the ability to build relationships, the ability to have mentors in a company, and the skill of EQ, the emotional intelligence skill, where you you're a team player, you contribute, and you're able to sort of work with a variety of people. That's sort of, in my mind, especially in corporate America, determines success in the corporate ladder. um, so the other thing I find is, if you are an optimist, you're more likely to succeed than being a pessimist. I've met very few rich pessimists. And if you look at what's happening in the world today, uh, we are probably living in the greatest time in humanity in terms of medicine, in terms of advancements in technology. Imagine anesthesia was invented at Mass General Hospital. And
Wow.
before that, if
I didn't know
somebody,
that.
yes, right here at Mass General, in fact, there's a museum outside Mass General which goes over it's the museum to talk about the history of anesthesia, how it was done first. And before that, imagine if you had, some problem with your leg, and you had to be amputated without anesthesia. Just imagine life at that time. So, and I think there's reason to be optimistic despite all you know, the stuff going on in the world. When you read the newspaper, you never hear any good news. You never hear that, that kids all over the world, are healthier in general. There's poverty, extreme poverty has gone down. You never hear about that. You only hear about the problems of the wars. So in general, you have to sort of create your own tunnel, and you got to ignore the noise, in my opinion, and being sort of optimistic and have a sense of positive self-expectation.
That's
Anyway,
awesome.
that's
That's
my
awesome.
take.
Um, Sanjay, do you want to go next on how can people,
Yeah.
young professionals can be succeed?
Yeah. So one thing, because both Raj and Priti alluded to the women in finance. So one cause of concern actually, because I am at the school, university, and I have these young students coming in the pipeline. Uh, at my undergrad, at the intro classes, I have like 40-50% are girls, but when it comes to the finance majors, which basically they end up with finance concentration, it drops down to like 10%. So that is like we need to encourage them to take more of finance, like to get into the finance career. They need the pipeline to we need to build up the pipeline. So that is one thing actually I do try my best. And coming back to your question about, so I completely agree with Raj what he said, but to add to that, hard work. It's like I read one book in one of the books there, that Tom Brady didn't become the best quarterback. Of course, I'm not debating football here, but it is because he puts in the hard work. It is not like is an innate player that nobody else could get 6 7 Super Bowls, only he could get, is because of the work that he puts in day out. Same with Michael Phelps, same with Michael Jordan. They became the superstars that they are, not because some god given talent they got something only exclusively to them, and suddenly they became like that great. It is the more better they became is the more harder they work, more every day, the number of hours they spend practicing the game. Same with Tiger Woods, right? So that is what makes you succeed. It's a lot of hard work. Yes, intelligence, smart, everything is important, but there is no substitute for hard work. You just can't take the intelligence. And now, because we are discussing finance, one more thing I'll throw it in there. Like a lot of times, of course, the end goal is to become rich, right? Make earning money is important, but just earning is not enough. You have to invest, you have to participate in the markets, because when you work hard you earn money, and then you make the money work hard for you so that it grows. It doesn't it's not just what you are earning, you are also making the money grow as and when you invest wisely, of course. So those are the things that will make you succeed in your career.
That's awesome. Thank you for that. Preeti, do you want to go give your last words on how to be successful in for young professionals for their careers?
Absolutely. I think there are few, I think 5 or 6 key points that I always follow, and I would love to share it with the podium. One is, of course, be relevant. Have the education that is required to be in the field that you wish to excel in. Secondly, be intellectually curious. I think just getting done with your undergrad or grad or postgrad and then letting it sit in the shelf is not going to work. We are advancing by the day, so keep yourself keep your saw sharpened, and continue to ask questions, utilize the resources, be intellectually curious. um, there is no substitute, like Sanjay said, to hard work. But I think along with hard work, you also, individually, I think you need to have the grit. You need to have the passion. If you don't feel passionate about the work you're in, then especially in a country like United States, you might have an option to take a switch. But if you are in the place that you love and you're passionate about, I think success is just a byproduct. So I think keep at it. Other than that, I think communication is a very important weapon or artillery that you have. It is not what you know, but it is what you communicate that gets your point across. So make sure that you are clear, lucid, and disarming, and of course, non-combative communication. I think that is so important, to get your way, to get yourself understood, and of course to eventually climb up the corporate ladder. And last but not the least, I would say, while you are ambitious and you have the quest of moving up, don't forget to smell the roses along your way, and don't forget to give credit to the team that you work with. Be grateful, appreciate what they do for you every single day. And if people around you feel appreciated and loved, they will make sure that you continue to move forward, so that you take the crew along with you.
That's awesome. I would like to thank each one of you to being part of the panel today. Raj, Sanjay, Preeti, you guys gave really good intellectual insight on finance and how to be successful for people, everyone.